Hi guys, it is April from Getting Hugo With It. This is probably the last vlog for my reading of The Handmaid's Tale. So I am around 200-ish pages in now, and it's getting exciting. I've had a few things kind of whirling around in my mind about this book. The first thing is about Offred's mother and her missing her mother and appreciating her mother, really not for the first time, but truly appreciating her and truly understanding her. So Offred's mom was a major feminist. She fought for the rights of women. She would go to rallies and protests for all sorts of things like abortion rights and all of these things. And she'd go with her friends, and sometimes they would come back to the house and talk about what they watched and what they experienced. And it was interesting because her mom a lot of the time would give Offred, who her name is obviously not Offred, but we don't know her name, but she'd give her a really hard time about her not going to protests and not being involved and being complacent. And it made me really, check in with myself about really appreciating the women that paved the way. There were so many women that have paved the way for a society and a culture where we have certain rights, which are now, for many places, being stripped away. And we should be outraged. And it's part of the reason that I wanted to do this read along of The Handmaid's Tale is, why aren't we more outraged? Why are so many people just okay with it? Because this could be the start of something truly terrifying. It's already terrifying to me. And it could get worse and worse and worse. I know that if any of the stuff that was going on in the US happened here in Canada, I would lose my mind. I would lose my mind. And there were women who paved the way in so many different ways, and it is scary to think that we could just take for granted that we've got these rights and that they'll always be there, when that can be stripped away. It really can. And it made me really think about my daughter and what I should teach to my daughter about her own rights and not just expecting them to always be there. It's made me really think a lot. Just Offred's relationship with her mother has really made me think a ton. And then, of course, I've gotten to the part in the book where they're talking about how this whole Gilead thing went down to begin with. So there were major bombings and shootings in the government in America, and it was blamed on Islamic terrorists. This was written in 1985, and I don't know, some of the stuff is just a little bit surreal in what would probably happen, just assuming that it's other. And so the army takes over, but it's not truly the army, it's Gilead taking over, and they literally strip away all the rights of women so that Offred, or whatever her name is, goes to pay for something using her card, her debit card or her Visa card, and it's declined because she's a woman, and all women no longer, sorry about Libby, no women have access to their money anymore. And then she goes into work and every single woman is fired. It could happen quickly. It is terrifying, that could happen that quickly, and you'd just be leaning on your husband. If you had a husband, if you were a single woman, I don't know what you would do. If you were a lesbian, I don't know what you would do. It is, oh my goodness, just reading that portion. And I remember when I read this many years ago, like I was in my early 20s when I read The Handmaid's Tale for the first time. This was the part that really stuck with me so much. It was just seeing how easy that could happen, how easily it could all go down. Terrifying. Anyway, deep thoughts, actually quite deep thoughts. I'm going to keep reading, but I hope you guys are having a good day. It's Monday here. I'll talk with you soon.
My dad? What's that?
Well, it is Wednesday morning at it's nearly 7 o'clock in the morning. I've reached that point in my pregnancy where sleep is not really happening. I woke up so many times in the night to go to the washroom. It is kind of insane at this point. It really is. Like, I stopped counting, I think it was 6 times. And then at 4 o'clock in the morning, my mind was just like, ding, I'm awake now. And so now I'm awake since 4. So I finally came downstairs and had some breakfast, and I'm going to read a little bit more of The Handmaid's Tale. I'm on page 307, so I'm getting there. We are at the point where the commander has taken Offred out of the house and on a date, but the worst date of life. He brought her to a this club where basically I think that the women there are prostitutes, if I'm not mistaken. They're forced into prostitution. Offred sees Moira there, who she hadn't seen in a while. She wasn't sure whether she had lived or died, whether she had escaped, but she sees her there, and Moira has kind of given up a little bit. I did find it interesting that this patriarchal society full of men have tried to construct this very pious society where women are to be respected, but not in a way that matters, by just making them celibate, or sex is exclusively for making babies, and yet they have created this whole other thing that is the club, and it's for them to get, all of the things that used to turn them on, basically, when they were, before Gilead was created. They still need that, or still want that. I don't think it's a need. I think it's a want. I do love that Offred is getting a little centered and testy with him. When they're at the club, she confronts him and says, I thought this thing was strictly forbidden. And he says, well, officially, but everyone's human after all. Nature demands variety from men. It stands to reason it's part of the procreational strategy. It's nature's plan. Women know that instinctively. Why do they buy so many different clothes in the old days? To trick the men into thinking there were several different women, a new one each day. Oh, stupidity. And then she says, so now that we don't have different clothes, you merely have different women. This is irony, but he doesn't acknowledge it. It solves a lot of problems. Oh my god, he is so dumb and annoying. That's why women had a lot of clothes? I just can't imagine a society where, women were so misunderstood, to this degree, where it's, you actually think we dress up in different clothes to make you think that we are different women. Oh, Lord. So this is an infuriating book in many ways. but it's still so good. So I've reached the part where she and Nick are basically forced to have sex because Serena Joy thinks that actually the problem of Offred not getting pregnant might be the commander. And it's very hard for me with Serena Joy because she is horrendous. Like, she will literally hold a woman's arms down so they can't struggle while that woman is being raped for the sake of having a baby. That is disgusting. I also feel in this situation that she has no power. I think she has, well, I realize she has more power than Offred does, but I don't think much more. The way that she's living her life, I really don't think she does. Because she wasn't able to give her husband a baby. The solution that her husband has come up with is not science, not turning to IVF or anything like that, but is to allow him to have other women that he has sex with, that he rapes. And she's either got to agree to it, or I don't know what, put up with it. I don't know, but she does what she does. I feel so many mixed feelings about Serena Joy. But it is interesting. The first time that I read The Handmaid's Tale, I really just thought of the handmaids as the victims. And the second time around, it really is every single woman in the room is a victim. There are different degrees, obviously, of who is most victimized, but I really think they all are. And I think it's interesting that, you know, these women who go along with it for so long, like Serena Joy, and she's like kind of, you know, rooting for this way of life. She gets into that way of life and realizes how shitty that is. And I really think that can apply now. I think that can apply now when other women don't stick up. When women don't stick up for other women and their rights, in the end, it also hurts themselves. It's unfortunate that people have to experience it firsthand to change their mind, usually. But yeah, it ultimately, I think it is for the detriment of all women when we don't stick together. Yeah, so I'm really nearing the end now, which is crazy. I've only got like 50-ish more pages to go, and I'm really glad that I read this. I was thinking the other day that I had really hoped to read Rosemary's Baby while I was pregnant. I know this is weird. I don't know why, but I wanted to read that. And I think this is scarier in a lot of ways. I still haven't read Rosemary's Baby, but I still think The Handmaid's Tale is more terrifying in so many ways because it feels more real in so many ways. So yeah, I don't know if I'll end up reading Rosemary's Baby because truthfully after this, because I'm reading this, I'm also reading Crib Sheet, which is about having a baby and like the data behind the choices that you can make after your baby comes. I've got a lot of baby stuff and like pregnancy stuff. This one's a tough pregnancy one. And I think I'm going to need a little breaky break from all of that. And I'm going to pick up something completely different after. But I did think that it was interesting that this is the book. This is the hard-hitting fictional pregnancy related book that I needed to read and not Rosemary's Baby. I don't know if this probably makes no sense to anyone but me. But anyway, I'm going to go and get ready for work because it's about that time that I should. And I will talk with you guys soon. Hey guys, I am making my way through The Handmaid's Tale. I'm really at the end now. I'm on page 350 and it's like the after notes. Like we've gone as far as we're going to go with Offred, and now I'm reading the historical notes. And it's interesting because it talks about like the lead up to Gilead. It says the need for what I may call birth services was already recognized in the pre-Gilead period, where it was being inadequately met by artificial insemination, fertility clinics, and the use of surrogate mothers who were hired for the purpose. Gilead outlawed the first two as irreligious, but legitimized and enforced the third, which was considered to have biblical precedence. It's interesting because it's kind of like what I was talking about before. If you take away science and you make everything about religion and what is called to you by God, I don't know what could happen. So the idea of fertility clinics being completely outlawed and artificial insemination. I mean, these were brand new things in 1985. I think the first woman who did IVF was in the 80s. Anyway, I'm still reading, but I just wanted to hop on here because I kept waiting to see if she was going to address fertility treatments and that kind of thing in this book, because I knew they were simultaneous when she was writing it and when IVF was first started. So super interesting that she did bring it up and that it was outlawed. You know, it just kind of goes to show, they talked in here as well about obviously abortion being outlawed. And then if fertility clinics are outlawed, it's like Gilead came in and took away a woman's right to choose entirely. And I do have to say that I do link, you know, abortion with fertility treatments in my mind, because they are both about a woman's right to choose about what is right for her and her family and creating a family when it is right for her. I think there's a link there. And I definitely feel that link. So anyway, I'm probably rambling by now and I'm very nearly finished. Okay, so I'm finished The Handmaid's Tale. I kind of liked the ambiguous ending. I know a lot of people like to have, you know, an ending where it's really clear cut and you know everything, but we don't know exactly what happened to Offred. I'm hoping that we'll get some answers in the Testament. But what do you guys think? Do you think the Testament, or is it the Testaments? I think it's the Testaments. Do you think they're going to follow a completely different character? Because I have a feeling they are. There are a few mentions in here at the back about other documents that they found, because The Handmaid's Tale was a found document, and it's Offred's story, yes, but it was a found document, and there were several others. So I'm kind of curious to find out if we're going to continue with Offred or meet someone new in Gilead, or like maybe it'll be the fall of Gilead and following another character. The historical notes take place in Nunavut on June 25th, 2195. So that's a ways away. Maybe it's a sequel in that way, not a prequel in any way, shape, or form, but a sequel. And we find out, I don't know, maybe what happens to her daughter. I'm so curious about what that's going to be about. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think. We're going to hear about and find out about in the Testaments. Anyway, so that wraps up my reading of The Handmaid's Tale. I'm so glad that I read it again. I got so much out of it this time around. Still don't fully know how I feel about Serena Joy. I kind of hate her for the most part, but there is a part of me that makes me feel like she's also a victim. Anyway, let me know in the comments below. Have you finished The Handmaid's Tale yet? Did you read along? What did you think? Was it like your first time reading it, or was it another reread like me? I'm so glad that you guys joined me in reading The Handmaid's Tale with me. It was really nice to do this together. And yeah, I can't wait for the testaments. I'll talk with you guys soon. Bye.